Welcome back to channel. The cross is not what you have been taught. For centuries, humanity has worshipped a symbol without grasping its transformative power. Goldsmith revealed that the cross represents the greatest spiritual secret ever given to mankind, a secret that when truly understood dissolves every problem you face. This is not about religion or belief. This is about consciousness itself. Most people see the cross as a historical event, something that happened 2,000 years ago to someone else. They pray to it. They wear it. They reverence it. But they miss the entire point. The cross is not outside of you. The cross is happening within your consciousness right now in this very moment. And understanding this changes everything about how you experience life. When you grasp what the cross truly means, you stop being a victim of circumstances. You stop waiting for external salvation. You discover that the power to transform your health, your relationships, your abundance, and your entire experience of reality has always been within you. The cross is the key that unlocks this power, and today you will learn how to use it. The vertical beam of the cross represents your connection to divine consciousness, to the infinite source that Goldsmith called the I Am. This is not a distant God in the sky. This is the presence that lives as your true self. The consciousness that existed before your body and will exist after it. The vertical beam is your direct line to infinite wisdom, infinite love, infinite supply. The horizontal beam represents the human experience, the world of effects, the realm where problems appear to exist. This is where you experience illness, lack, conflict, and limitation. Most people live only on this horizontal plane, trying to fix effects with more effects, using human effort to solve human problems, and wondering why nothing truly changes. The intersection of these two beams is where transformation occurs. This is where divine consciousness meets human experience. This is where the infinite enters the finite. When you understand how to live at this intersection, you stop fighting the world and start dissolving it through spiritual realization. This is the secret Goldsmith spent his life teaching. Here is what happens at the intersection. You die to the belief that you are merely human, not physical death, but the death of the false sense of self that believes it is separate from God, separate from source, separate from infinite supply. This is what the crucifixion truly means. The crucifixion of the human sense of self that sees itself as limited, vulnerable, and at the mercy of external conditions. When this false self dies, something extraordinary happens. Your true self, the Christ consciousness that has always been present, is resurrected. You realize you are not a human being trying to become spiritual. You are a spiritual being temporarily experiencing human form. This shift in identity is not philosophical. It is practical, and it changes how you respond to every situation. Goldsmith discovered that when you live from this resurrected consciousness, problems do not need to be solved. They dissolve. Illness does not need to be healed. It disappears in the light of truth. Lack does not need to be filled. It is revealed as illusion. The cross teaches you to stop working on the horizontal plane and start living from the vertical truth of your being. The practical technique is this. When any problem appears, any fear, any limitation, you pause and remember the cross. You recognize that what you are seeing is only on the horizontal plane, the world of effects. Then you consciously turn to the vertical, to the I Am presence within you. You do not beg. You do not plead. You simply rest in the awareness that God is, that infinite consciousness is present right where you are. As you rest in this awareness, something shifts. The problem begins to lose its power over you. Why? Because you have stopped feeding it with your belief in its reality. You have stopped trying to fix it with human effort. You have stepped back from the horizontal and aligned with the vertical, and from this position, divine intelligence flows through you, revealing solutions you could never have conceived with human thinking. This is not instant or magical in the way most people imagine. Sometimes the shift happens quickly, sometimes gradually over days or weeks. But it happens because you have activated the true meaning of the cross within your consciousness. You have crucified the false and resurrected the true. This is practical mysticism, and it works when you work it faithfully. Let me share what happened to Margaret, a woman who came to Goldsmith's teaching after years of chronic pain. She had tried everything: doctors, medications, alternative therapies, positive thinking. Nothing worked because she was working only on the horizontal plane, trying to fix an effect with more effects. She was exhausted and losing hope. When she learned about the cross, something clicked. She realized she had been fighting her body, fighting her pain, fighting reality. Instead, she began practicing the crucifixion of her belief that she was a body vulnerable to pain. Every time the pain appeared, she would pause, acknowledge it was on the horizontal plane, then turn to the vertical truth. I am is the only presence here. It took 3 weeks of consistent practice. Not because God was slow, but because her consciousness needed time to truly die to the old belief and resurrect in the new. Gradually, the pain episodes became shorter, less intense. After 2 months, they stopped completely. Her doctors were baffled. She was not surprised. She had discovered that healing is not about fixing the body. It is about correcting consciousness. Thomas was drowning in debt. His business was failing. His family was stressed. And he felt trapped in a nightmare of lack. He had prayed countless prayers asking God to send money to save his business, to fix his circumstances. But he was praying from the horizontal plane, begging effects to change, and effects cannot change effects. When Thomas understood the cross, he stopped praying for things. Instead, he practiced dying to the belief that he was a limited human being subject to economic conditions. He stopped looking at his bank account as reality and started recognizing it as an effect of consciousness. Every morning, he would consciously crucify his fear of lack and rest in the vertical truth. Infinite supply is the nature of God, and God is my consciousness. Within 6 weeks, 3 unexpected opportunities appeared. Not because he manipulated reality or used the law of attraction, but because his consciousness had shifted. When you stop believing in lack, lack stops appearing in your experience. His business did not magically recover, but something better happened. He was offered a partnership in a completely new venture that aligned perfectly with his skills. His shift in consciousness opened doors that did not exist before. Rachel had suffered through 3 failed marriages. She believed she was cursed in relationships, that she was unlovable, that happiness was for others but not for her. Every relationship followed the same painful pattern: initial hope, gradual disappointment, eventual betrayal, and devastating heartbreak. She was ready to give up on love completely. The teaching of the cross revealed something she had never considered. She was not unlucky in love. She was living from a crucified consciousness. She believed the lie that she was separate from love. That love was something outside herself that others could give or withhold. This belief on the horizontal plane created her painful experiences. She began the practice of crucifying this false identity. Every day she would rest in the truth. I am love itself. Love is not something I need to find or earn. It is what I am. She stopped looking for someone to complete her and started living from wholeness. After 8 months of this practice, she met David. But more importantly, she met him as a whole person, not a desperate one. Their relationship thrived because it was not built on need, but on the overflow of 2 people who had discovered their completeness in consciousness. These stories are not exceptional. They represent what happens when anyone truly understands and practices the meaning of the cross. The cross is not a symbol to worship. It is a map of consciousness to follow. The vertical beam reminds you of your true identity as infinite consciousness. The horizontal beam shows you the world of effects that has no power except what you give it through belief. Every time you face a challenge, you stand at the intersection of the cross. You can stay on the horizontal, trying to manipulate effects, fighting circumstances, struggling with human effort, or you can consciously choose the vertical, dying to the false belief in limitation and resting in the infinite truth of your being. This choice is always available to you. Joel Goldsmith taught this with such clarity. The cross is not about suffering. It is about transformation. It is not about sacrifice. It is about realization. When you live from the cross, you live from power instead of from problem. You live from source instead of from circumstance. This is the spiritual secret that changes everything. If these transformation stories inspire you, like this video to help others find these teachings. Subscribe for more Joel Goldsmith wisdom and comment what healing journey resonated most with you. Now let me give you a complementary technique that deepens your practice of the cross. Joel Goldsmith called it the practice of impersonalization. This means recognizing that nothing on the horizontal plane is personal to you. The illness appearing in your body is not your illness. It is simply illness appearing as an impersonal belief in separation from wholeness. The lack appearing in your finances is not your poverty. It is simply the universal belief in limitation expressing through your experience. The conflict appearing in your relationships is not about you or them. It is the impersonal belief in separation trying to maintain itself. When you impersonalize the problem, you stop taking it personally. And when you stop taking it personally, you stop energizing it with emotional reactivity. This is crucial because most people crucify themselves on the horizontal plane by making everything personal. They say, "Why is this happening to me? What did I do wrong? Why am I being punished?" These questions keep you trapped in victim consciousness. Impersonalization lifts you above the battlefield, allowing you to see that what appears as your problem is simply an impersonal suggestion that you are separate from God. And suggestions have no power when you recognize them as such. Here is how you practice impersonalization with the cross. When a problem appears, instead of saying, "I am sick, I am broke, I am alone," you say, "The belief in sickness is appearing, the belief in lack is appearing, the belief in separation is appearing." Do you feel the difference? You have removed yourself from identification with the problem. Then you take the next step. You recognize that these beliefs exist only on the horizontal plane of effects. They have no reality in the vertical truth of consciousness. God does not create sickness, lack, or separation. These are not divine creations. They are human misperceptions. Therefore, they have no power, no law, no permanence. As you rest in this realization, you are practicing the crucifixion. You are nailing the false belief to the cross, allowing it to die in the light of truth. You are not fighting it, resisting it, or trying to overcome it. You are simply withdrawing your belief in its reality. And as Joel Goldsmith repeatedly taught, what you withdraw your consciousness from must dissolve because consciousness is the only substance that gives form to experience. Another complementary practice is what Joel called living in the now. The cross exists only in this present moment. The vertical beam connects you to the eternal now where God is. The horizontal beam is where past and future create the illusion of time and separation. When you worry about tomorrow or regret yesterday, you leave the intersection where power exists. Every moment that you bring your awareness fully into now, you activate the cross within your consciousness. You stop projecting fear into the future. You stop dragging guilt from the past. You simply are resting in the I am presence that exists only now. This is not about mindfulness as a relaxation technique. This is about recognizing that divine power operates only in present moment awareness. Practice this when your mind wanders to worry or regret. Gently bring it back to now. Ask yourself in this very moment, stripped of all story and projection, what is actually here? You will discover that in the pure now, problems do not exist. They exist only in the story your mind tells about past or future. The cross brings you back to the intersection of eternity and time where transformation is always available. The third complementary technique is recognizing supply as omnipresence. Joel Goldsmith taught that God is not a supplier who gives you things. God is supply itself, and you live and move and have your being in infinite supply right now. This shifts everything about how you approach the issue of lack. When you understand the cross, you realize that lack appears only on the horizontal plane, as an effect of belief in separation from source. On the vertical plane, there is no lack because there is no separation. You are not separate from supply any more than a wave is separate from the ocean. The wave may look distinct, but it is made entirely of ocean. You may appear separate, but you are made entirely of divine consciousness, and divine consciousness is infinite supply. Practice this daily. Instead of asking God for supply, rest in the awareness that you already exist in supply. Feel it, sense it, know it as the truth that surrounds and fills you. This is not visualization or positive thinking. This is recognition of what is already true. As this recognition deepens in your consciousness, supply begins to appear in your experience, not because you attracted it, but because you stopped blocking it with belief in lack. Now let us address the challenges that arise when you practice these teachings. The most common obstacle is the demand for instant results. You practice the cross for a day, a week, maybe 2 weeks, and when circumstances have not dramatically changed, doubt creeps in. You think, this is not working. Nothing is happening. I must be doing it wrong. Joel Goldsmith was honest about this. He taught that consciousness transformation is not always instantaneous. Why? Because you are undoing years, sometimes lifetimes of belief in separation. You are crucifying deeply rooted patterns of human thinking. This takes consistent practice, patient dedication, and willingness to trust the process even when you cannot yet see the results. The key is understanding that something is always happening in consciousness, even when you cannot see it on the horizontal plane. Yet every time you choose the vertical over the horizontal, every time you crucify a false belief and rest in truth, you are shifting consciousness. The outer effects will follow, but they follow consciousness. They do not lead it. Trust the process. Another challenge is the temptation to mix this teaching with other methods. You practice the cross in the morning, then spend the afternoon trying positive affirmations, then the evening worrying and planning human solutions. This divided consciousness cancels out your spiritual work. Joel Goldsmith called this having one foot in truth and one foot in illusion. The cross demands a choice. You cannot crucify belief in limitation while simultaneously acting from limitation. You cannot rest in infinite supply while hoarding and fearing lack. You cannot know yourself as spiritual being while identifying as vulnerable body. This is not about perfection. It is about consistency of practice and willingness to catch yourself when you slip back into horizontal consciousness. When you notice you have slipped, do not condemn yourself. Simply return to the cross. Recognize the horizontal thought. Crucify it. Return to vertical truth. Over time, this becomes more natural. You catch yourself faster. The old patterns lose their grip. This is how transformation happens. Not through perfection, but through persistent return to truth every time you drift into illusion. A third challenge is dealing with well-meaning people who think you are in denial or being irresponsible. When you stop fighting circumstances and rest in consciousness, others may interpret this as passivity or avoidance. They do not understand that you are working on a level invisible to human sense, the level of consciousness where all change originates. Joel Goldsmith faced this constantly. People would criticize his approach as impractical, unrealistic, even dangerous. Ignore the disease and it will kill you, they said. Stop worrying about money and you will be homeless. His response was always the same. I am not ignoring anything. I am seeing through it to the truth that sets me free. You do not need to convince anyone of this path. You do not need to defend your practice or prove it works. Your demonstration will speak for itself. When your health improves, when your supply flows, when your relationships harmonize, people will ask what changed. Then you can share, not from a need to convert, but from the overflow of your own transformation. Until then, practice quietly, trust deeply, and let results be your validation. The final major challenge is the ego's resistance to crucifixion. Your false sense of self does not want to die. It will create every argument, every doubt, every distraction to keep you from this practice. It will whisper that you are special, that your problems are different, that this might work for others, but not for you. Recognize this as the voice of the horizontal, trying to maintain itself. The ego survives only as long as you believe you are separate, limited, vulnerable. The cross threatens its very existence, so it fights back. This is normal. This is expected, and this is ultimately powerless against consistent practice of truth. When ego resistance appears, do not fight it. Fighting the ego keeps you on the horizontal plane. Instead, simply observe it without judgment. Recognize it as another impersonal belief trying to appear as your reality and return to the vertical. Choose the I am over the I am afraid. Choose infinite consciousness over limited thought. Every time you make this choice, the ego weakens and truth strengthens. If these challenge-breaking techniques speak to your heart, like to support this content, subscribe for advanced spiritual practices, and comment. Which obstacle are you ready to transform? Now let us now explore advanced integration of the cross in daily life. Joel Goldsmith taught that spiritual practice is not something you do for 30 minutes in the morning and then forget. The cross must become your constant awareness, the lens through which you interpret every experience throughout your day. Start by setting what Joel called spiritual alerts. These are moments throughout your day where you pause even for 10 seconds and remember the cross when you wake before breakfast, when you start work, during lunch, in the evening, before sleep. Each pause is not about lengthy meditation. It is about touching base with vertical consciousness, remembering who you truly are. During these pauses, you do not need elaborate techniques. Simply bring to mind the image of the cross and let it remind you. I live at the intersection of infinite and finite, divine and human, eternal and temporal. Whatever is happening on the horizontal plane has no power over the vertical truth of my being. This brief remembrance resets your consciousness and keeps you anchored in truth throughout the day's activities. Advanced practice also means applying the cross to seemingly positive experiences, not just problems. When something wonderful happens, when abundance flows, when healing occurs, the temptation is to celebrate on the horizontal plane, to think you did something right, to feel special or deserving. But this keeps you trapped in effects. Instead, use the cross to recognize that the good flowing to you is not really coming to you at all. It is flowing through you because you have aligned with the vertical truth that infinite good is the nature of consciousness. You are not earning it, deserving it, or creating it. You are allowing it by removing the obstacles of false belief. This prevents the spiritual trap of what Joel called gratitude that reinforces separation. When you thank God for giving you something, you imply that God was withholding it and has now decided to give it. The truth is that infinite supply is always present, always available. Your only work is to recognize this truth, not to persuade God to give you what you lack. Another advanced application is using the cross in relationships. Most relationship problems exist because both people are relating from the horizontal plane of personal identity, ego needs, emotional demands, and past conditioning. Each person sees the other as separate from themselves, as someone who should behave in certain ways to make them happy. The cross dissolves this by revealing that there is only one consciousness, one infinite I am expressing as all beings. When you look at another person from vertical awareness, you do not see a separate individual who can hurt or help you. You see consciousness itself looking back at you wearing a different costume but made of the same divine substance. This does not mean you accept abusive behavior or stay in harmful situations. It means you respond from truth rather than reacting from wounded ego. You set boundaries from wholeness rather than from fear. You love from fullness rather than from need. When both people in a relationship discover the cross within themselves, they stop trying to complete each other and start celebrating the wholeness they each embody. The ultimate advanced practice is living from spontaneous crucifixion and resurrection. In the beginning, you consciously practice the technique. Problem appears. You remember the cross. You crucify the false belief. You rest in truth. This is necessary and valuable. But as the practice deepens, something extraordinary happens. The cross becomes automatic. The moment a false belief tries to enter your consciousness, it is instantly crucified without effort. You no longer have to work at remembering truth because you have become established in it. The vertical consciousness is no longer something you access. It is what you are. This is what Joel called living in the fourth dimension. From this state, you still experience the human world, but you are no longer fooled by it. You see through appearances to reality. Problems may appear, but they have no power to disturb your peace. Challenges may arise, but you meet them from infinite resource. You have become the cross, the living intersection of heaven and earth, and your very presence becomes healing to all who encounter you. We are approaching the completion of this teaching, and you must understand that everything I have shared is not theory or philosophy. This is practical spiritual science that Joel Goldsmith proved in his own life and thousands of others have proven since. The cross is not a symbol to admire. It is a consciousness to embody. From this moment forward, you have a choice. You can return to living exclusively on the horizontal plane, identifying with problems, fighting circumstances, hoping for external salvation. Or you can embrace the way of the cross, dying daily to the false sense of separate self and rising into the awareness of your true identity as infinite consciousness. This choice is not made once. It is made moment by moment, situation by situation, challenge by challenge. Each time you choose the vertical over the horizontal, you strengthen truth in your consciousness. Each time you crucify a limiting belief and rest in unlimited reality, you demonstrate the power that created the universe. This is your inheritance as a spiritual being, and no one can keep it from you except your own belief in separation. Let me be clear about what you can expect as you walk this path. You will have good days when the practice feels natural, when problems dissolve easily, when you feel connected to Source. You will also have difficult days when old patterns reassert themselves, when circumstances seem overwhelming, when you question everything you have learned. Both types of days are part of the journey. The difficult days are not failure. They are opportunities to deepen your practice. They reveal where belief in separation still has a foothold in your consciousness. They show you what needs to be crucified next. Joel Goldsmith went through years of practice before he established consistent consciousness, and he was one of the great mystics of the 20th century. Be patient with yourself, but be committed to the practice. Do not judge your progress by external circumstances alone, because consciousness shifts often precede visible changes. Judge your progress by the increasing peace you feel in the midst of circumstances, by the growing trust you have in divine presence, by the diminishing power that problems have over your emotional state. As we close, I want you to understand the profound gift Joel Goldsmith gave the world through this teaching. He took the central symbol of Christianity and revealed its mystical meaning, showing that the cross is not about worshiping a man who died 2,000 years ago, but about awakening to the Christ consciousness that lives in you right now. This teaching is dangerous to religious institutions that profit from keeping people dependent on external authority. It is threatening to medical systems that profit from treating effects rather than transforming consciousness. It is uncomfortable to anyone who prefers the familiar misery of victimhood over the unknown freedom of taking spiritual responsibility. This is why it has been hidden in plain sight for centuries. But you have found it, or it has found you, and that is not an accident. Something in your consciousness was ready for this revelation. Something in your soul recognized truth when you heard it. Now you must do what all who discover treasure must do. You must use it. You must practice it. You must prove it in your own life so that your demonstration becomes a light for others who are ready. The cross of Christ is not outside you. It is your very consciousness. The vertical beam is your eternal connection to I Am. The horizontal beam is your temporary experience as human. Where they meet is where you live, where you choose, where you demonstrate truth or perpetuate illusion. Every problem you will ever face is an invitation to return to the cross, to crucify the false belief that created the problem, to rest in the truth that dissolves it. Every moment of suffering is a call to remember who you truly are. Every experience of lack is an opportunity to recognize infinite supply. Every fear is a chance to choose faith in the omnipresence of God as the only power. Joel Goldsmith devoted his life to making this teaching accessible, practical, and provable. He removed the mystical language that kept it hidden from ordinary people. He showed that you do not need to be special, religious, or perfect. You only need to be willing to question your beliefs and rest in truth. The power that created universes lives in you as you, and when you truly understand the meaning of the cross, you unleash that power in ways that transform not only your life, but everyone you touch. If your spiritual understanding expanded through these Joel Goldsmith secrets like this video, subscribe for more transformative teachings, and comment "I am transformed" to confirm your new path.